Tucker Carlson ramped up his criticism against so-called woke corporations by going after some of his former allies, Kevin McCarthy, but he did it in an interesting roundabout way. So let's take a look at the first video and we'll discuss.
Frank Luntz. Luntz lobbies, he's not a registered lobbyist, but he lobbies on behalf of some of the world's most left-wing corporations. A lot of people do that. Here's the interesting thing about Frank Luntz. At the same time he's doing that, he also advises the leadership of the Republican Party. So Frank Luntz works for Google and Nike and Delta Airlines, among many others. Several years ago, Frank Luntz advised the makers of OxyContin on how to blame rural Americans as thousands of young people in rural America drop dead of opioid ODs. Frank Luntz did that. So he's not someone that normal people would go to for advice. And if you were running the Republican Party, you definitely wouldn't, because Frank Luntz is effectively a Democrat. So why does Frank Luntz remain a fixture in Republican politics at a time when the companies he works for are opposed to the Republican Party, explicitly so? Well, in part because he is particularly close to the House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy of California, and has been since McCarthy entered politics. In an interview earlier this year, Luntz described Kevin McCarthy as a personal friend. And that relationship gives Frank Luntz outsized influence over the Republican Party's policy positions.
Okay. Can I begin to explain?
Have at it. Go nuts. Okay. Go nuts about Luntz.
Okay, here we go, Luntz nuts. Okay, so there's a couple of really interesting things happening here. Number one, I'm here for Tucker Carlson attacking left-wing corporations. Are they actually left-wing? Of course not, right? Here's what corporations want to do: maximize profit. But here, and in doing so, what they've done is they've bought the entire Supreme Court. That's explained in my new book that's coming out at some point, justicecomingbook.com if you want to pre-order. But there's a really important part in there about how Lewis Powell wrote the Powell memo saying corporations should just simply take over the government, and they did, okay? And so our number one job as people that are not in the establishment is to fight the corporate machines. And here we have a very unlikely ally in the right wing attacking corporate machines. Now they're attacking them for all the wrong reasons, because of the voting rights issues in Georgia, et cetera. But having all that marketing go out to right wingers as saying that maybe corporations are not your friends, right? Maybe you shouldn't listen to all the standard politicians telling you how wonderful corporations are and how they're patriotic and they're in it to help their employees, et cetera. When of course it's not. For public corporations, they must maximize profit, and they will crush us in their path, and they have, those machines have, right? So now he's doing it as he's attacking Frank Luntz. Now, is he being completely honest about Frank Luntz? Of course not. Frank Luntz has been a Republican pollster for my whole life, and is definitely a Republican, and helped Newt Gingrich come up with the contract with America that led to the radical Republican takeover in 1994. So he has tremendous credibility within the Republican Party. But now
he made the Republican Party.
In a lot of ways he did, that's right. It was, the estate tax got switched to the death tax because of Frank Luntz. And I can give you all these different horrible phrases that he came up with to sanitize their grotesque policies. That's actually who Frank Luntz is. That's why Kevin McCarthy is great friends with him. He's like, he's the main guy that helps Republicans trick the rest of you into voting for their horrific policies. But again, there's a really interesting twist here where Tucker Carlson says, no more, I don't want you tricking people into supporting corporations, which is what the Republican Party has done their whole lives.
Okay,
right?
Yes, can we pause there for a second? So that's where I think people need to be incredibly careful, because never underestimate the conservatives' ability to adapt to the current political climate. And the current political climate is one that is against corporate greed. Doesn't matter if you're a Democratic voter, a Republican voter. I think the one thing that voters in general are united on is that there is something incredibly toxic and rotten about how our economic system works, and how corporate greed has essentially ruled everything for decades now. We've seen wages stagnate. We've seen inequality continue to grow. And so as a result, people are furious, they're angry. And it's very difficult to get by with the original talking points that you would likely hear on Tucker Carlson's show several years ago. The talking points about how, we got to do the tax cuts. We got to ensure that we give corporations everything they want because they're the job creators, trickle down economics. People aren't falling for that crap anymore, including Republican voters. So what people like Tucker Carlson are doing is they're trying to rebrand themselves as these anti-corporate warriors, when in reality, they love deregulation. They love this system of inequality. In fact, he gets to take advantage of that system of inequality every single day. He's the heir of Swanson wealth. And I don't want anyone to be foolish enough to fall for it. Because when push comes to shove, people like Tucker Carlson will never do anything to hold these corporations accountable. The very companies that he's complaining about right now are not woke companies. Sure, they might pay lip service following backlash regarding the Georgia voter suppression law. But when it comes to their actual business practices, when it comes to what they're willing to do in paying out political bribes to keep their taxes low, when it comes to the treatment of their workers and all of that, they love the conservative brand. They have followed the conservative brand, and Tucker Carlson loves it too. So don't fall for it. They are not our friends. They're not anti-corporate warriors. They love corporations and they love deregulation and they love this system of inequality. They want to keep that going.
So all that is true, but it is still an interesting development that Tucker has decided to go uber populist. And if I'm looking at it strictly as political analysis, he is correct. He has correctly deduced that the American people and the right wing hate the establishment. Why do you think Trump won in 2016? We said it on the show. We had this figured out a long time ago. Hillary Clinton, it was the embodiment of the establishment. We said, do not pick her. The American people hate the establishment. And everybody in the establishment, everybody on corporate media was like, oh no. Everybody loves Hillary Clinton. On which planet? On which planet, right? She's the ideal candidate. She's the one more likely to win. No, she was the one less likely to win. People hate the establishment and they hate big business. Now, no one on the Democratic side has really quite grasped that. Bernie, to some degree, obviously, but honestly, these days he's getting co-opted left and right in the Senate. That's my job, is to be frank with you guys, right? And so, now, I think he'll get back to his roots. I hope one day he goes back to actually fighting corporate power. But so on the Democratic side, they're all muted. So they went Hillary, and then they learned nothing from that. They went Biden. Biden only won by 43,000 votes in 3 states. That's it. He almost lost to Trump again. So when these fools go in the next time around with, aren't big business great? They're such job creators. And golly gee, my God, the establishment is wonderful. And here's some standard fake politicians, right? They're gonna lose to someone like Tucker. Now think about that last part of it. Tucker, according to some reports, is thinking of running for president in 2024 or 28, etc. And if you wanted to do that, you would do exactly this.
Right.
Yep. Right? And it would be the smart thing to do. So what is he doing? He's doing the populist stuff we just talked about, but he's also doing the populist terrible stuff on the right. The trans people are problems, the immigrants are problems.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, right? The right-wing brand of populism is, we need to shut our borders. We need to demonize the others, America first. It's honestly the same strategy that you saw with Mussolini, same strategy you saw with Hitler. I mean, Hitler presented himself as some socialist. Let's keep it real, he did. It was the National Socialist Party.
Right, now mind you, he wasn't actually socialist.
He wasn't, exactly.
Right.
Let's be very clear on that. But I'm bringing that up because what he attempted to do was appeal to the economic frustrations that people were feeling in order to get them to sign on to what he wanted to do. And it's incredibly dangerous. And I see people falling for the fake populism that's being spouted by the likes of Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, and it's not that complicated. It's just that the mainstream media gives you no populist left-wing alternative. Because the populist left-wing alternative is clearly anti-corporate power, not against companies altogether, but but against corporate power and how it has bought our government. But the mainstream media lie about that 24/7. That's their main job, to protect those corporations and their interests. And so, and the Democratic Party lies about it all the time. So they're falling right into fascism 101 trap that Tucker is setting for them.
Yes.
If Tucker just did the populist stuff against corporate power, then we would have no reason to disagree with him. He also does it against the endless wars. On that, we would have no reason to disagree with him. The reason we're telling you to be careful is because he puts it together with the other half, which is supernova toxic, right? Hate the others, it's their fault, not your fault. You're the victim and they're the ones oppressing you. You gotta do something about it. You gotta do something about those people trying to replace you. That's why his replacement theory antics are the most dangerous of all. But now, back to the politicians. Here's another thing Tucker's realized that we realized a long time ago, but no one on TV does. You're gonna hit politicians all day long. They're like, people on mainstream media, they think, oh, politicians are beloved, benighted figures, and you couldn't possibly criticize them. That would be the death knell of you. Really, why? I remember when I was a host on MSNBC, one of the producers said, hey, after you do that segment, we should have a politician on to talk about it. And I asked, why? He said, he hadn't thought about that probably in decades, and said, I don't know, we need politicians to talk about it. And I said, no, you don't. People hate politicians. And he was like, and whenever I criticize Democratic politicians, they would say, remember who the home team is. No, if you think politicians, fake politicians are your home team, no wonder you're a disaster, right? And so the last part of what makes us savvy by Tucker is, if he is in fact going to run for president, you would want to destroy the reputation of all other Republican leaders. So you would want to destroy Kevin McCarthy through Frank Luntz, which I think brings us to the second half of the clip.
Yes, so let's watch that.
So Luntz is a personal friend of Kevin McCarthy's, who's the top-ranking Republican in the House. That's what we said. Turns out we didn't know the half of it. Over the weekend, we got a call from a source who said that, in fact, Frank Luntz and Kevin McCarthy are not simply friends, they're roommates. Kevin McCarthy lives in Frank Luntz's apartment in downtown Washington. That's what we were told, and honestly, we did not believe it. The top Republican in the House lives with a Google lobbyist? Come on. Even by the sleazy and corrupt standards of politics in Washington, that did not seem possible. In fact, it sounded like a joke. But this morning, since we heard it, we called to check with Kevin McCarthy's spokeswoman. And when we raised this, she all but chuckled at the suggestion. No. When he's in Washington, she told us, Kevin McCarthy rents hotel rooms or sleeps in his office in the Capitol. He certainly isn't living with Frank Luntz. Okay, and that seemed logical to us, but we did press a little bit because we got the tip from someone we consider reliable and we just wanted to be sure. So the spokeswoman said she would get back to us. 2 hours later, we got this text, quote, following up on our conversation from earlier today. Because of the pandemic, McCarthy has rented a room in Washington at a fair market price from Frank Luntz. So actually, the top Republican in the House does live with someone who lobbies for Google. Mystery solved. Not only are they friends, they're roommates. So now you know why they listen to Frank Luntz, but they don't listen to you.
Man, this stuff's really interesting. Politics is now topsy-turvy. So that's devastating to Kevin McCarthy for the right-wing audience that listens and watches Fox News. So he hammered him there. First of all, Tucker Carlson, what an actor, right? We didn't believe it. Oh, you believed it. That's why you asked and you did the research, etc. But it turns out, oh my God, it is true. Get out of here. But you know what? All that, like the graphic that they put up of them doing in the bunk bed and stuff, it appeals to people. It's an easy way to hook them in, right? And so, and it turns out that hitting politicians hasn't hurt his ratings at all. He's actually greatly improved his ratings ever since he started mocking Republican politicians on Fox News.
Because everyone hates these people.
Exactly.
They've been around forever. They're dinosaurs. And while they've been around, people's quality of life has not improved in any way, shape, or form. It has only gotten worse. So yeah, I'm not shocked at all. I'm not shocked at all that Fox News's conservative audience is not in favor of Frank Luntz and Kevin McCarthy. But there's, again, there's something even bigger to be concerned about, and it's this brand of fake, like this fake populism coming from people like Tucker Carlson, who's even more vicious and more pro-corporate than even the traditional Republican Party that we've been complaining about for so long. Do you get what I'm saying?
I do, but so because I'm at this point, I hear what you're saying about Tucker Carlson, but I think what's more damning is what it tells you about the rest of the media. So I don't want you to get it twisted. Does Tucker Carlson have a lot of courage for hitting Republican politicians? No, he just discovered it's actually better for him. It gives him higher ratings and stuff. He loses nothing from it. And if he had actual courage, he would every once in a while take on Donald Trump. And he don't like that.
No, everything he does.
Of course he's not gonna do that.
Everything he does is self-serving. Of course he's not
exactly.
gonna do that.
So it's not actual courage and it's not actual honesty. He totally protects Donald Trump because he knows if he says one unkind word about a single orange hair on his head, his entire audience will turn on its with great wrath against him. So there's no courage there. Okay, but look at that. He's just pointing out simple corruption things like Frank Luntz helped to basically whitewash what OxyContin did. All those people died, and Frank Luntz told them good messaging to cover up their crimes. And do Republican politicians use Frank Luntz? That's absolutely true. Do those same guys, by the way, in the Republican politics, take money from those same drug companies to cover up their crimes? Yes. But do Democratic politicians do that as well? Yes, they do, okay? And so now, isn't it humiliating for the New York Times, NPR, NBC, you name it, for all of them, that they don't expose that simple corruption in both parties, and now they leave it to Tucker Carlson to do it, and then he's gonna add his toxic populism on top. And then meanwhile, what does the New York Times and all those other outlets do? Do not ever, ever consider progressives. They are radicals. Do not ever consider populists left because they're actually right. Never talk about them. And if you do, talk about them in terribly dismissive ways. Everybody get back to the corporate agenda, corporate agenda, corporate agenda. It's deeply embarrassing that our national media can't figure out things that Tucker Carlson figured out and actually do it with truth. Instead, all they ever do is cover it for the corporate machines that are crushing us all. Partly because they're also corporate machines.
Okay, man, I can't take any more Tucker. I'm just keeping it real. I can't.
No,
I can't
we're done.
do it.
We're Tuckered out.
It's too much. It makes me want to jump off a bridge. Okay, let's move on. Please.
Okay. All right, I'll do the next.
God damn it, man!
Okay.
It's like Tucker Carlson all day, every day. There was anyway. All right,
and he knows it's going to draw attention too. He's very savvy. I'll give him that. Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.